There was a chair that's not here now, either a King Louis or one of these chairs. These
Like an Empire-style chair?
yeah, like the from that era,
Okay.
and was here. And as we sat here again, as we stood here, as I'm interviewing Patrick, he becomes kind of uncomfortable. He was feeling a little uneasy. And I said, Patrick, I said, is there a problem? Because everything was going so well until we hit this spot right here. And he said, I'm even feeling a little short of breath as I'm speaking because I'm remembering this, how eerie this was. And he said, he related to me. He says he didn't like being up in this space right here. He said he had a very odd feeling about this area here. And there was a cabinet sort of thing with dolls.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Because
for a while you could actually come up to this level, and there was exhibition space on this level.
There was exhibition space on the, and the child's dolls over here and toys and that sort of thing. And the chair was right about here. This has been reconfigured somehow.
It has, yeah.
Has this wall been added?
No, the walls are all original, but we have sort of reconfigured, and the 2 rooms up here are our archives and our object storage, and then just our offices
right.
now.
Well, you need it today because you need this space.
Sure.
But when we came downstairs, it prompted me to contact a friend of mine, a psychic by the name of Joy Herald. Hi, Joy. And Joy Herald, I didn't tell the name of the building and there was no computer. You couldn't Google at that point. And folks, as I mentioned with Rich Foster downstairs, there's so much history in this house, and we can't possibly, relate it all. But you can Google all this.
Right, and of course you can come to the museum and
of course go to the museum.
Take a tour with one of our educators, and that's always the best way.
But as you're listening to the program now, if you want to, folks, if you're listening to the program now and kind of want to follow along and Google as you go, there's just way too much to deal with. And then I had Joy Herald come in, and we sat downstairs. I didn't go in with her. We sat downstairs in the garden. And she started talking about her feelings about the building and all that and what she was sensing. And then she talked about this floor. And she talked about that chair. And she said, that chair, there's a spirit in this house. She felt the spirit in this house. She says, that chair is where the spirit sits. And the spirit, it could be the Hessian soldier, it could be, that spirit sits there and walks through the house, but always begins at that chair and ends in that chair, sits in that chair. And that and Patrick Groom feeling strange being right in this area tells me that something is going on in this house. What do you think? What aside? I know you talked about one haunting story. Supposedly, what else have you?
I mean, I think it's the line from Hamlet that, there are more things in heaven and earth that we can think about. So even though I've never experienced anything myself, there's always the possibility that there are things going on, and some people are more sensitive to that than others. So if anyone comes to visit and they see or hear Eliza, they can always let me know. And I always say to people on tours that ask me about the haunting, especially with Eliza, because she seems to be the most popular of the ghost stories, that I think she would be very happy that people talk about her every day, and it was really her house. She lived here the longest. She lived here for 55 years. So a lot of people really consider this the Jumel Mansion, and I think that maybe she's just kept alive by us talking about her so much.
Right. Rich was saying that she had a checkered past. What about that checkered past? You don't hear about that checkered past?
She did. Shouldn't talk so loud.
I'm sorry, Eliza, but this is radio.
She came from Rhode Island, and she lived in Rhode Island with her mom, her dad, and a sister. And they actually get forced to move out of Rhode Island for running something in the 19th century terms called a dissolute household. So we don't have any hard evidence to support anything that pop culture of the 19th century came to believe, but a dissolute household could mean that your household is in complete disarray and your neighbors are complaining. It could mean that her mother was running a tavern, or, of course, what the 19th century started believing was that the mother was running a brothel. So that is the story that has carried on through the years. And when Eliza comes to New York, she becomes an actress, which, if anyone knows anything about 19th century social etiquette, doesn't really help your reputation in society, but she knew that it would throw her into the path of very wealthy men, and that's what it did, and that's how she met Stephen. That he had come to the theater one night and fell desperately in love with her because supposedly she was very attractive when she was a young woman.
Now, Aaron Burr married her 8 months after Stephen Jumel died.
He does.
What was their relationship? Do you know anything about their relationship? I'm learning something new this time around.
Well, supposedly they had met when they were both younger, and I will leave that up to people's imaginations depending on how lengthy their relationship was. But when they get married, Eliza's 59 and Aaron Burr is 77. So he's already sort of on the downslope. He has already killed Hamilton in the duel. He's already been vice president under Thomas Jefferson. His law firm is not doing so well. So he really marries Eliza for her social standing and her money. She realizes it, isn't so happy about it, and is going to divorce him. But the day that the divorce is going to come through, he dies the same day. So he dies in the morning, the divorce comes through in the afternoon. So Eliza is not the ex-wife of the former vice president, but she's the widow of the former vice president, which doesn't really do much for her over here in the United States, but she's still traveling back and forth to France a lot, and the people in Paris are very excited to have the widow of the former vice president at their parties.
Rather than the ex-wife.
Exactly. So she gets into parties and salons she could never get into otherwise.
Ladies and gentlemen, the ex-wife of the former vice president
doesn't have
work.
the same ring.
This is sounding dissolute. Dissolute?
It's a good word. It's a good word. And I couldn't make it up. That's what I always say to people when I lead them around on tours here, or one of my educators does, that especially when it gets to the 19th century, it gets very gossipy, a little TMZ in the 19th century, but it is mostly true.
So he dies. How does he die? What happened? He didn't slip on a pitchfork.
He doesn't fall. No, he doesn't fall on a pitchfork. He is actually ill, so he dies about a year or so after that they're married.
But he died the day of the divorce.
Yes, yeah, which is, crazy coincidence.
And again, what was he ill from? Was she spiking his food? What do you think?
No, not that I have ever read or heard or seen of any documentation. He, medicine was not as good, obviously, back then, and he had a hard life. His first wife died. His daughter, his really beloved daughter, had been lost at sea, and he had a lot of hardships in his life. So I think it was just natural time to go.
And Eliza Jumel is the person, the woman in the window that may have been her, that the school children thought they saw?
Yes, that's how the story goes, that the curator came running up and the teacher said that someone had come out and told them to be quiet. And when they got into the house, we have a full-length portrait of Eliza and her grandchildren, and the teacher pointed out the fact that that was the woman in the painting was supposedly the woman that came out and talked to them.
The teacher, and she actually came out?
She actually supposedly came out onto the balcony and told the children to be quiet.
And the teacher saw this too?
She did, supposedly. Now, I have not talked to anyone that was there that day, so again, it's a good story.
This is a haunted house. I'm convinced.
You're convinced.
You're telling me.
I'm not so convinced.
And then Joy Joy and I were just speaking about this the other day, that I was coming up to the mansion again, and we as a matter of fact, I interviewed her, and she was on earlier here on Audiobook Radio with me, and we talked about the Morris-Jumel Mansion, and we talked about the chair and the whole deal, and she's absolutely convinced that this house is haunted, and you have done nothing to dispel that rumor.
Well, like I mentioned, to me, I think being an educator...
Even though you're not saying it, the check and pass, and the Aaron Burr, this really is... I'm a conspiracy theorist type of guy.
Well, as I was...
Folks, how many conspiracy theorists are going, she did them in?
Well, like I said, as an educator, I think there is definitely the possibility of weaving a really good story. And
you sure have.
And I think that's what people's imagination picks up on, that you take the historical fact and you add your own imagination and you get a really good story. Does that mean Eliza's walking around? I don't know. I can't tell you. But you'd have to just come and visit.
Wow.
So that means everyone listening should come and visit and see for themselves.
Absolutely. Folks, you're listening to New York City Visions. I'm your host and fellow New Yorker. Again, for this 55 minutes, Herb Malsman. Earlier on today, in this program, we had Richard Foster, and we're with Carol Ward right now. Again, your title?
The Director of Education and Public Programming.
And Rich Foster is the Executive Director.
No, he's actually Director of Marketing and Public Affairs.
Director of Marketing. See, I'm getting all this. Rich is kind of over there listening again right now. The question I had for Joy Herald when we were talking about the change in this space up here is, okay, you've got computers up here now. It's a computer.
It's offices.
Friendly, offices now.
Mm-hmm.
There was none of this technology when I was here in the mid '80s, and when Joy Herald toured the house. What would this technology, if there was a spirit that was up in this room, in this space right here, if in fact there was a spirit, and I think there was, what do you think might have happened to that spirit because of the technology up here? Do you think?
That is outside of my purview. I can't give you an answer to that.
Will a spirit likely depart because of the technology and what's going on? And do you think the spirit was forced to leave the space?
I couldn't tell you. I don't know. Yeah. I mean, like I said, I think everyone comes up with really, really good stories, and I think in the hearts and minds of people that live in the neighborhood and certain people that have been around for a really long time, Eliza will always be here. And like I said, I think that's because we talk about her so much, and it was her house. I
would leave and find another spot in the house, maybe.
I don't know.
Maybe think?
A more comfortable spot
that
doesn't have as many computers. I don't know.
Okay.
Unless they want to surf the internet.
There you go.
And go, look for some more French Empire style furniture, because Eliza would probably buy it.
Okay. Let's you be the guide, and where do we go from here?
Sure. We can go back downstairs. What would you like to see?
No, you tell. You're going to take us now. Okay, yeah, I'm going to kind of chat so we don't have any dead air. We're walking downstairs right now. Boy, that monitor is from Washington's time right there.
Yeah, it is a little old.
What do you think, huh? Rich, is that monitor from Washington's time?
This monitor over
here?
It might be predated.
Predated?
It might be older than me.
Well, holy cow. Okay, we're coming downstairs.
So we talked a lot about the second floor, and I think, like I mentioned before, the really exciting thing, and I'm sure Rich maybe spoke about this with you a little bit too, is that we're a historic house. We're Manhattan's oldest house, but we always like to do something interesting and new. So, our goal is really that colonial meets contemporary, that we have exhibits about our permanent collection, but then we'll have contemporary art over the summer. We have lectures, we have concerts, we have about 15,000 visitors a year, and last year about 6,500 of those came on one of our tours, and about 6,000 of those are school children. So we invite teachers to come and bring their classes and learn all about the history of the house.
I give a phone number and address right now, and then we'll. We haven't done anything on the main floor yet, so we can do that and perhaps step outside.
Sure.
Okay, so give a phone number and the website right now, and then we'll continue.
Of course. So the phone number is 212-923-8008, and if anyone calls, they can of course speak to myself. Ken Moss is the executive director, and we're always available to answer any questions or if people are interested in visiting. The website is www.morris-jumel.org, and we just went through a major rehaul of the website. Yeah, we're really happy with it. It's really a lot more interactive, and people can do online reservations and find out lots of information on there.
The site is just remarkable.
We're really
great
happy.
Website you have.